Hello everyone. In this video of JavaScript documentation, we're gonna learn about JavaScript Scope. This is a very important topic in JavaScript because lots of beginner at initially they will do mistake on the scope variable. So back then we have only global scope and functional scope. However, we have now two keyword let and constant after the ES6, which allow us to define block scope as well. So let's see about it. Try to write the code along with me, so this will be useful as well, because in lots of interview you probably gonna face the same question, talk about JavaScript scope, or what is the what the function will gonna print, and they're gonna give you some code in different scope of the variable. To start with, we're gonna first start with the block scope. When you define a block scope, it only remain inside the block, which means here we have this. Let me comment out this line. We have defined this, we can define a name, let's say XYZ, and if we call this get user, this user will gonna get printed. However, this name doesn't access, we cannot access this name outside of this function. If we try to print the name here, we will see that we have red here, which is not accessible. And however, if we had defined this name outside of this function, we was able to access this, but again we have a global and then we have a local as well. Here we have XYZ and we have then maybe ABC. If you notice the changes here, now we have this name call, which will gonna call this XYZ because this name doesn't have a reference to this functional value, and so the name refer to this global name, whereby here this name will gonna refer to this local scope. Now how we know which one is what scope, right? Anything that is defined on this function, we call it as a block scope or functional scope, and anything defined outside of the function, that is a global scope. So it is always recommended not to declare anything on the global scope because that can be override by the other functions. However, there are some in back then in JavaScript, there are some issue we used to face when we had this bar keyword, and when you use the bar, if you notice, this can be manipulated very easily. And if we write this, you're gonna see first we have this Mr. X YZ two time, right, which here as XYZ and here as well as XYZ, but we define name again as ABC, which didn't work. But again here itself we had this ABC. We can name it up, maybe brown, and we can say GL. And if we remove the logs and try to see the log, if you see first the global value, this is printed, which is the XYZ, and after that we have this up, and this value got changed here automatically, and then this value got again. However, if we just say const here and try to print it out, we will notice that first the XYZ is printed which is the global. Then get user, we're gonna set the up as undefined. At this point it is undefined, but abc down is okay. But moving this here, change the whole sequence again. Now we see that first is the up, which is undefined because nothing is defined here, and then we have this name abc, which is down, will be here. But again we printing name, but this doesn't impact on this variable. But then we see some local scope, which is the functional scope as well. In anything declared on the function level as a local, we can say it as a local scope. However, this is a block scope which is declared inside the parenthesis, but functional level is a function scope, which can be defined in two way. So if you define x equal to 10, this will be referred to this block only, instead of referring to a global scope. And then the global on is this one, where we have this name, and then we can print it here as well. So in the global scope, we can see here in the function level. This example is very familiar. Like we usually ask this when we have this JavaScript interview or anything, right? Think about constant car name, and we define the function here first. Okay, at this point we supposed to not have this function, we not declare, but because of the JavaScript behavior, we can see that Volvo name is printed here, because this function, because of the event loop, when JavaScript try to scan the code, it will gonna first see the function, and then it will read the function as well, and when it's gonna execute, it will gonna put it into event loop, and then it will gonna push and pop. That kinds of thing will gonna work here. So that's how this value is being we are able to keep it. However, there is something called static mode, in which in Node.js we can disable those kinds of behavior. And next is the hoisting. Hoisting is a default behavior of JavaScript, where we can move the declaration at the top, which means we have this value as x here, 5, and then we can set the value, and we can define the value later as well. However, if we even do this, because of the default behavior, still the value of 5 will be executed for us. By defining here and here, we won't have any issue by getting the value. So even we run this, we will gonna still see the value 5 is being displayed. If we see here, 5 is displayed here. This is a default behavior, but if we, instead of bar, if we define as a const or let, this behavior will not work. Example, we can see, let's say we use let, and if we run, and then declare this at the end. If you see, this value is not displaying here. However, instead of let, if we use bar, 5 is displayed here. So that's the behavior of JavaScript in when we talk about hoisting in JavaScript. And the example is declaring x and y here, and if you notice 5 and 7 is declared here. However, if we say initialize y here and and trying to display this 2 value, this y value is not initialized because we have, when this statement is trying to access this x and y, first it already found the x, y not found, so it will only display this one value since it's rendered only one time. Here is the example. This is because only the declaration about y is not initialized, hoisting at the top, so it happened only one time, right? So another example is this. So we have this 5 and y equal to 7. Same thing happened to here, but if we just declare here, we should be able to see the 7. Hoisting is a unknown and overlooked behavior in JavaScript, and this can be behaved in number of way, so some number of unpredictable way, unless you know how JavaScript engine behave. So you need to learn about all this event loop concept, and also how interpret each and every level on JavaScript. So sometimes some interviewer may ask this question to just see how in-depth knowledge you have, so it's good to know this thing, but in terms of day-to-day coding, probably you won't see that much this type of behavior. That's it, and I see you in the next video.